the NFL is about to kick off, and so that means that I need to make my predictions for this upcoming season. So I will get into that. It'll take me some time, but let's go through it. First off, holdouts and injuries. This is one of the things that early on in the season tends to make or break some teams. Say you go 4 games without your starting quarterback and you go 0-4 in those games, the rest of that season you have to make it up and you almost have to go perfect. I mean, this happens to many different teams. And sometimes it's a quarterback, other times it's a star wide receiver or a star defensive player. And when you lose one of those guys, it can be devastating. So now the biggest holdout is obviously Chris Jones. Um, and he deserves to probably get paid top of the market. Although he is getting a little bit older there. I mean, you still look at his previous season, he was absolutely phenomenal for them on that defensive line. He's by far their best player, one of the best I would say one of the best 1 or 2 in the league. I would have said a couple years ago Fletcher Cox, but he's kind of getting a little older there now. So I would say it's between Chris Jones and Aaron Donald as the two best defensive tackles. Now, defensive line players, there's a couple more options, some more people that I would maybe have to take some time to think of. But regardless, Chris Jones, one of the best in the league on the defensive side of the football. Obviously, we do know that the Saints are going to be without Alvin Kamara for 3 games after a fight that he had in Las Vegas. They did make up by signing some other players. I mean, they did get Jamal Williams, which is a great pickup for them. And I will talk later about the New Orleans Saints. They did have the most interesting offseason. Them and the Jets, I would say. Um, but be that as it may, they will go 3 games without their number one running back and probably wide receiver as well, or pass catcher, I should say. So that's probably the biggest one to look out for in terms of getting taken out. Another one you could look at is Cam Robinson, the Jags OT. Yeah, he got caught with PEDs, and that's going to be really hard for Trevor Lawrence because he's going to have to try and basically run for his life because he's going to have by far his best offensive lineman not there with him. And then also injuries in terms of the big top of the line players. I mean, look at some of these names right here. Travis Kelce tonight, Thursday, may play. They're saying he's likely to play. I'm not too certain about that, but at least they're saying that it's probable that he will play. Now the Chiefs still without Travis Kelce can still move the ball down the field, but it's just once you get into that red zone and you need a big target. The chemistry between Kelce and Mahomes is second to none. It's one of the best quarterback receiver duos, even though Kelce is a tight end that we've ever seen. Certainly that I've ever seen. Then coming up next, Jonathan Taylor. This is an interesting story, mostly due to the fact that we don't know where Jonathan Taylor is going to play this season. Are the Colts going to be able to keep him and sign him to a deal that he believes is worth his value, or will we see them try and move him to a different spot? I would like to see him stay on that team. I think the Colts are in a good space to try and rebuild. Yeah, this season with Jonathan Taylor. I mean, it's not a good situation for Jonathan Taylor to stay in Indy. Let's be clear on that. It's a good situation for the Colts to have a established top 5 running back in the NFL and Jonathan Taylor, and then to have a young quarterback in Anthony Richardson, and hopefully next year they can get some weapons on the offensive side of the football, try and rebuild that offensive line, and then really start to go all in on that defense. So And also, my third string running back currently on my fantasy team is Jonathan Taylor. So I would really like to see him. I have Aaron Jones and Nick Chubb. So I'm feeling pretty solid with my running back choices. I think I'm gonna be all right. Arizona Cardinals, Kyler Murray, still working back from ACL surgery. Still no timetable for his return. I mean, if the Cardinals come out and they lose 3, 4 games in a row, is Kyler Murray just gonna say, "Yeah, I'm done," like done with the season? Now I don't know how much we'll be able to see how much he has on his um contract. No, but he should be coming up on a contract extension in maybe 2 years. I think he signed an extension 2 years ago now. A massive contract. So we'll see what they do. Do they try and trade him? Do they try and draft a new quarterback? I don't know. It's kind of I always thought that Arizona was one of the better teams, and I thought that they would make it to an NFC Championship game for like 2 years in a row, but I have been disproven time again. The Dolphins, another great offseason for them. Jalen Ramsey, repaired meniscus in the knee, so he will be at least until December. So that's going to be pretty bad for them. They're going to lose probably one of their top guys. I mean, they also have Xavier Howard, who's fantastic, one of the best corners in his own right. And then hopefully, if they do make it to the playoffs, which I will say that they will, to have Jalen Ramsey come back at that time would be incredibly helpful for them. Although there could be some communication issues on the defensive side of the ball, but I'm not too worried about that. I think Jalen Ramsey can figure it out. If he needs to, he can just go man on man coverage and lock down pretty much whoever he's on. So that is something to keep an eye out for once we get closer to the playoffs in December or so, where you're kind of looking to see, does he come back? Does he get any regular season games? I would probably say no. I think they just wait, and if they're close to the playoffs, they try and bring him back early. Or if they've already secured a spot, they're second in the AFC East behind the Bills, or maybe a game below the Bills or tied with the Bills. I don't see him coming back to the playoffs. But if they're in a spot where they're competing with the Patriots or whoever it may be, they're in third or fourth place or something like that, I could see them trying to bring him back early to make a playoff push. Another Miami Dolphins player, Jeff Wilson Jr., multiple injuries. He was supposed to split time teaming up with Raheem Mostert. Yeah, Raheem Mostert, not bad, came over from the 49ers. But they did have a very good 1-2 punch with both of those running backs who kind of play similar, but definitely a loss for them. And I will be interested to see what the Dolphins are able to do because offensively, they're top of the line. They have two great receivers. They have a, a pretty far above average quarterback in Tua Tagovailoa, and defensively, they're one of the best in the AFC. Bills, Von Miller. I really feel like he's getting a little old. I mean, in the locker room, I can confidently say he's probably one of the best players in the league just because he's been everywhere. He's won Super Bowls. He's been with the Rams. He's been with the Broncos. He's been with legendary players. But on the football field, I am not too certain that he'll be able to get you double digit sacks in a season. I don't know if he's capable of doing that anymore. So this, in terms of a loss, I feel is more so congruent with those who believe that this isn't the biggest loss compared to the rest of the list. Obviously, Kyler Murray is the number one biggest loss of all of these. I mean, there's nobody even close to a quarterback on this list in terms of people who are just totally toast. And then to kind of finish off the list, you have Tim Patrick, just awful, awful. Achilles in training camp. Just he's not going to be here for the entire season, was just absolutely devastating, not only to him but to the wide receiving core and Russell Wilson as well. And then finally, Ryan Jensen for the Buccaneers. I mean, I wasn't expecting the Buccaneers to do much this season without Tom Brady, obviously. So, yeah, this is going to suck for the team, but I didn't have high hopes for them anyways. Speaking of, anyways, let's first dive in to the AFC. This will be the first. Now, this is NFL.com, and I'll kind of go alongside to see kind of what they put as their top teams in the AFC, and I'll give my absolutely 100% expert, always right analysis to this. Analytics expert Cynthia Freeland took data from the past 10 NFL campaigns to create historical references for personnel schemes and matchups, identifying factors that are proven to lead to wins or losses. She vetted the correlations with a bunch of real football people, coaches, and had her math checked out by real math people, example, PhDs, to make sure the model reflected reality as much as possible. Then she compared this year's personnel schemes and matchup with the vetted mathematical weighings and simulated the season to produce a ceiling, floor, and projected win total for all 32 teams. The ceiling to floor range is something to focus on. A big discrepancy means the team is projected to play in more close games. Cynthia's simulations included 1 million runs of every single regular season game, which equals 272 million total games played. Without further ado, here are the projected win totals for the AFC teams. Right off the bat, these number 1 and 2, not really, not super concerning. The only concern, here we go. Yeah, the Chiefs, not concerned with them at all. Even without Travis Kelce, they're probably the best offense in the NFL. So, and also, yeah, they do mention this projection presumes Chris Jones does return to the team. Now, if he sits out for half the season or he gets traded, this could change a lot of things because defensively, teams could start putting up 30 points against the Chiefs very easily. And I don't want Patrick Mahomes in week 6 to be going on his 5th straight game where he has to complete a game-winning drive. Like that's not the Chiefs that are going to be headed to the Super Bowl if for 11, 12, 13 straight weeks they're going to have to win close scored games. It might be good experience for them, but you can't be having 10, 12, 14 of those in a row. Like there is a certain point where these players are going to just come to their breaking point, more or less. And then Bengals, I think of the AFC North, by far the best team. Maybe you could say the Browns and the Steelers are relatively close. I would pick the Ravens as probably the second best team. Others would pick the Browns, but yeah, the Bengals, as long as Joe Burrow can stay healthy. I know he had that little injury scare during camp, but one of the big things here was definitely the loss of 2 of their best safeties. First round pick 2022, Dax Hill. He was the backup to Jesse Bates and Von Bell. Von Bell, hard-hitting safety. Jesse Bates kind of covered the entirety of the field. That's a huge loss for them. That really is going to impact what their defense is going to look like this year. And I mean, wow. They did get Nick Scott, who is from the Rams, went to Penn State as well. I know that because I was a student at the time, and 16-game starter for the Rams. He wasn't terrible or anything like that. Yeah. Also, there are a lot of options for defensive back formation with the team's veteran corners. So defensively is kind of the worry here. Offensively, great quarterback, great running back, great 1, 2, maybe even 3 wide receivers there. Even the tight end isn't looking anything like garbage or anything like that. Offensive line, pretty improved compared to previous season. So we'll see what the third is, and I think these are pretty 2 safe bets for the 1 and 2. Now the Bills. This is the team that I was thinking that they would put number 2, but I think they are factoring in what happened last season a little bit far too much. Josh Allen, way too many turnovers. He just makes some silly plays at times where he gets pressure and he tries to scramble out of the pocket. And because he has such a big arm, he tries to make plays down the field or throwing across his body, throwing to the other side of the field. And sometimes it's just a split decision where you throw too late or too early and somebody is able to read you down the field and they get the ball. So that was one of the biggest problems with the Bills last season. They would have these giant splash plays, but when trying to recreate those, there is a lot of times where you're going to get picked off because not every single time that you're going to do that play, you're going to get the result that you want. And obviously, we talked about earlier, Von Miller, locker room presence, one of the leaders of this defensive unit, if not the entirety of the team. I would say he's a better leader in the locker room, in the facilities with the younger player development than he is on the field. He's a very, very valuable player, even though he's not going to get you 15, 20 sacks a year. But be that as it may, I do think the Bills are going to be A-okay, fine. I do think they're going to win the AFC East. I don't see them really having to worry too much about the Jets. I'm kind of not really too high on the Jets, which I'll talk about later. Here's the interesting thing. The Bills used 12 personnel, 1 running back, 2 tight ends, 2 wide receivers at the lowest rate of any team last season. And they played nickel defense or 5 defensive backs at the highest rate of any team. They should be able to mix it up more now. Getting healthier at safety specifically helps a bunch too. Then they have the Ravens projected wild card. Yeah. I mean, you add Odell, that helps them in terms of their offensive capabilities. I think Lamar Jackson, he's going to have another season where he's going to surprise many people with his arm talent. I think he's a fantastic thrower of the football. He's got a rocket of an arm. Yeah, accuracy isn't perfect, but I mean, he can also run just about as good as any running back in the NFL. And they also do point to the ceiling as 12 wins, where the ceiling for the Bills is 12.2 and the floor. And the FanDuel over under is equal between the Bills and the Ravens. I would still pick the Bills over the Ravens. Ravens, I just worry too much about what that offense will actually look like. I'm not worried about Lamar Jackson. I'm worried about everybody else on offense. Yeah. Cincinnati does have a tougher strength of schedule based on opponents' 2022 winning percentage. And the Ravens have a high variance between their floor and ceiling. But this year is less about the offense and more about whether the defense will come together. They have the players on defense, right? Roquan Smith, Marlon Humphrey, 2 top of the line players at their position. Roquan Smith, he could make the argument, one of the top 3 to 5 best middle linebackers in the entire NFL, or just linebackers, period. Marlon Humphrey likely out for at least a couple of games after going foot surgery. Now they do have some other pieces on that cornerbacks list that can definitely help him out. They have Kyle Hamilton at safety, who's a absolute stud, who can help him out in the pass defense game as well. So I'm not as worried about their defense. I am worried about injuries for Baltimore becoming a nagging issue, especially if it's a foot surgery. If you're not taking that rehab correctly, if you're not eating the right stuff, if you're not taking care of your body during the rehab process of a foot injury, that's something that can come back. Like a knee, much different than an upper body injury. These lower body injuries are very, 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 very hard to come back from. So they're a team that I think could potentially maybe be up in the fight with the Bengals. I think they probably end up as second in the AFC North. Unfortunately, I do think that just defensively, they can get there even with the injuries. I just don't think that they have enough offensive weapons. It's Lamar Jackson and some A-OK wide receivers. Yeah, they've brought some guys in, obviously Odell being one of the big names. But they have brought in some other players as well offensively, but I still am a little wary on what this offensive team can do. Now, The Jets at 9.9 wins. I do not think the Jets are going to be winning 10 games. I'm sorry. The ceiling, if Aaron Rodgers plays another MVP level season and they have one of the top 3 to 5 defenses in the AFC, this is a possibility. However, I do not think that Aaron Rodgers is going to be an MVP level quarterback, and I don't think that their defense is going to be top. It'll be top 10 in the AFC by far, but top 3. I mean, last year, incredible rookie campaign by their young cornerback, Sauce Gardner. Incredible defensive line, incredible linebackers. Can they repeat that this season? I'm going to bet no, that they will not be able to recreate their defensive performance that they did last season. They have re-signed a bunch of guys. Yes, everybody's getting a year older. That means a little bit more experience for Sauce Gardner. I think he'll be absolutely locked down, one of the best corners in the National Football League in his second season. However, I do not think that the Aaron Rodgers experience is going to work out well in the favor of the Jets. So I would say in the AFC East, behind the Bills, yes. In front of the Patriots, of course. In front of the Dolphins, that's a maybe. I think the Jets and the Dolphins are going to be fighting for that number 2 spot, regardless of what really happens in the season. I'm not too high on the Aaron Rodgers season. Jags, a lot of people think Trevor Lawrence has made a large jump and has become a lot better. I mean, last season we saw how great he was in the playoffs. I mean, he's been that dude since he was in high school. So I'm not too surprised that he now all of a sudden he's one of the best quarterbacks in the National Football League. Now, here's a little bit interesting. You'll see the Titans projected to finish behind the Jaguars in the AFC South have a higher ceiling. So the ceiling for the Jags is 10.4 games. If the Jags offensive line can withstand the 4 weeks it will be without the suspended Cam Robinson and then settle in once he's back, it dulls the question my model raised about the team's defense giving up explosive plays. I know that might sound confusing, but the offense and Trevor Lawrence specifically really works well when play action is humming. If the O-line can hold up its end of the bargain, the offense will carry the team and control the pace. Yeah, I think this is a very offensively heavy. They made some big acquisitions in the offseason at their tight end position. Or not this past offseason, but they really have upgraded that tight end position. And offensively, I'm not too worried about them. Defensively, I think after years and years without Jalen Ramsey, it's really starting to show that they haven't really been able to rebuild that defensive back position, or that group, I should say. I think AFC South champs, I don't know. I'm going to say probably no. I think the Titans, even though they're kind of all over the place with their quarterbacks, I do worry about injuries with the Titans. They are a pretty old roster, but I still think Derrick Henry and that defense will prevail. So I am a little bullish. I think they might get to 9 wins. They might get to 9 wins. I don't see them winning 10 games, though. I do not see that. I don't see a 10-7 Jacksonville Jaguars. The Chargers. Ceiling is almost 12 games. They're at 11 games as a ceiling, which I think is not going to happen for the Chargers. Listen, it's not because they don't have a good quarterback. I think it's because their roster and there's way too much movement with their coaching. I mean, they've gone through many different coaches in the previous couple of years. I mean, Brandon Staley. And they've had a couple of other coaches prior to him, offensive coordinators moving in and out. They just got the Cowboys offensive coordinator. I just don't feel like they're a stable team. And so I think without stability comes little tiny things that just add up over time, and mistakes get larger and larger and larger and compound on top of each other. Browns. I'm always a big fan of the Browns because I think they have one of the best run games in the entire NFL, because they have probably one or two best offensive line in the AFC. and they have, in my opinion, the best running back in the NFL. Nick Chubb has been by far one of the most consistent running backs that we've seen in the past 4 years, probably. He is a giant of a man. He is super, super strong. Even though when you watch his squat videos, he doesn't go to depth. You know, and I know that. He doesn't go ass to grass. He doesn't have his calves touch his hamstrings. We know he doesn't go deep enough on those squat videos, right? When he's squatting like 680, not saying that I could even do 280, but if you're gonna do a squat, you gotta go ass to grass. Even if you gotta drop the weight another 50 pounds, I'm more impressed by what can you do at full depth. But that's a tangent for another time. Anyways, with the Cleveland Browns, Deshaun Watson, another year under the belt, maybe another year removed from the controversy that he got himself into. Maybe he'll be a top of the flight quarterback like he was his final maybe 2 years in Houston when he brought him to the playoffs in that crazy game against the Bills. Yeah, I do agree. There's a ton of upside. Yeah, playing in a talented division makes for more nail biter games. Yeah, I could see that they will be really close with the Steelers. I think they do separate themselves from the Steelers unless Kenny Pickett is all of a sudden going to become a Pro Bowl quarterback, which I don't see. I don't think he has the weapons around him. Yeah, George Pickens is nice. He's fun. Deontay Johnson is nice. He's fun. But Deontay Johnson did not have a receiving touchdown last year. Let's pump the brakes on the Steelers, all right? I think the Steelers are probably going to finish last in the division. Unfortunately. They might win 8, 9 games. Maybe. I don't see a lot of brightness in their future. Now, I could be wrong. Their defense is still top of the line, but offensively, I don't know what they're going to be doing. Now, moving on to the Dolphins. Yeah. Obviously, the Jalen Ramsey injury is a huge piece of concern for this squad. Yeah. And then also, Teron Armstead and Jalen Waddle are not 100%. Each missed time in the preseason with injuries. That would also be problematic, especially since, as I mentioned earlier, the Dolphins' Week 1 game against the Chargers has potential playoff implications. So early on in the season, I will be interested to kind of see more so what this defense turns into because they have the talent there on defense. Even without Jalen Ramsey, I think they have one of the best secondaries in the AFC. Certainly in their division, it's bar none. I mean, I can't really even make an argument for anybody else in the AFC East. I mean, maybe the Bills, but come on. It's the Dolphins. Even without Jalen Ramsey, they were absolutely phenomenal last year. And I think Tua takes another step forward. And I think those wide receivers, especially Tyreek Hill with another year with Tua, I think they'll be sitting high. Potentially, I think they could get 10 wins. I think they could. I don't know about 11 and 6 might be a little bit too much for my liking, but with that being said, I think that they could easily get to the playoffs. Potential wildcard team. Now, here we go with the Steelers ceiling 10.5 games. I'm not really liking it. I do not see the Steelers winning 10 games. I don't see the Steelers going 10-7. I'm sorry. And here it is. If Kenny Pickett is going to take the step forward, many of us are anticipating the O-line will need to do a better job of supporting the offense. One of the worst offensive lines in the AFC, Pittsburgh Steelers. They did trade away some of their offensive line guys. They did draft. They've done some things that are good. And obviously TJ Watt on the defensive side of the football, one of the best, if not the best defensive player in the entire NFL. Some would make the case that he is the best player in the entire NFL because of the multitude of skills that he brings to the table. Denver Broncos. This is an interesting one. Interesting. Their floor is 6.6 wins. Yikes. Not good. FanDuel over unders 8.5. I'll take the under. I think they might win 8 games. The Broncos' schedule has the potential to be pretty punishing. Lot of primetime games for Russell Wilson. Very interesting. Featuring a 5-game stretch that includes the Chiefs twice, the Jets, after a week 9 bye, the Bills. Yikes. All right. Yikes. Yeah, I don't see this. I'll take the Titans over these guys. Like I said, I think the Titans could potentially, if they stay healthy, if everything goes to plan, I think that they could actually really be one of the better teams. Once again, though, this is dependent on a multitude of factors for specifically for the Titans. What's that quarterback battle going to look like? Who's going to come out on top? Is it going to be Ryan Tannehill? Malik Willis? I don't know. I don't know. The ceiling, I think the ceiling should be about 10 games. Maybe we see another amazing Derrick Henry season, but I'm not too excited about the quarterback play of this team. But I think defensively it's just they're all right. They're all right. But let's look here. Win the AFC or bust for the Titans. 2 teams from the division make the playoffs at just 8.1% of model simulations. For Tennessee, aside from staying healthy, which is something all teams need, both lines likely will determine how the season go. If all comes together as planned and DeAndre Hopkins helps open up the space near the line of scrimmage, then the Titans could steal a playoff berth from the Jags. Yeah, DeAndre Hopkins, he is a little bit older. I think he does help them somewhat on offense, but I don't think that they'll be winning 10 games. I think it'll be about 9 to 10 game range for both the Jags and the Titans. That division's just an absolute atrocity. Next, we go on to the Patriots. Good run game, but unfortunately, I feel like their quarterback just isn't there. He makes way too many mistakes. And the Patriots have the second hardest schedule in the first 4 weeks of the season, according to my math. However, if new offensive coordinator Bill O'Brien can get play action to work well, this projection trends towards the ceiling. Yeah, the ceiling is 9 wins. I think they could do it. I think they'll probably be more closer to about 8 and 9, under 500. But I think ultimately it just comes down to their defense is kind of average. And their offense is kind of average. They're kind of an average team. They don't really have too many players. Obviously, Ramondre Stevenson, he's probably one of their best players on offense. Definitely better in terms of his positional ranking compared to their quarterback, which is never something that you want to have for your team. Now the Raiders. Raiders made some big splashes. They got big old Jimmy G, but their early schedule is pretty challenging. First 4 games, Broncos on the road, Bills on the road, home versus the Steelers, and then on the road versus the Chargers. While the pass rush projects to improve, solving challenges on the back end, especially early in the season, would go a long way towards changing the upside case for the Raiders. I think Jimmy G is middle of the road quarterback. He can make plays. He'll be able to take you on a game-winning drive if you need him to. But if you're going to be asking him to throw for 350 yards in a game with 2 touchdowns and 0 interceptions, I don't think he's the guy for that. I think there's only a very, very, very small number, maybe 4 or 5 guys in the NFL who you could ask to do that. And unfortunately, this defense is absolutely atrocious. They have so many different storylines in the offseason. You have Chandler Jones on social media just flat out calling out the organization because he got locked out of the building. I mean, what the hell is that? Get this guy a new key card. And also, why are you posting about it on social media? Call up the owner. You definitely got somebody's number, I would imagine. Say, yo, let me in the building. It is very disrespectful to Chandler Jones that he's locked out, but also you got to let him know, man, hey, I'm locked out. Maybe instead of posting on social media, you could go straight to the people. Now, if he has gone straight to the people and they just said, yeah, yeet, I would understand his point far much better. But I'll have to ask him, even though I've never had a conversation with him in my life, and I probably never will. Although I would love to. He seems like a cool dude. His brother is the greatest UFC fighter of all time and probably the most dangerous human being of all time. And John Boney Jones Bones. Johnny Bones. You get what I'm saying. John Jones of the UFC. Yeah. The Texans, the ceiling at 8 wins. That's their ceiling. What does their rookie squad look like? What does their rookie squad look like? They won 3 games last season, and that their defense in particular is poised to take a step forward in 2023. They've added new head coach DeMeco Ryans, formerly the 49ers defensive coordinator, as well as 3rd overall pick Will Anderson Jr. And they also are getting Derek Stingley Jr. back, who was in college just a freak, an absolute freak as a defensive back. And then they also did draft CJ Stroud, who was, I mean, in my mind, besides Bryce Young, he's one of the better quarterback prospects that we've gotten. Now, for whatever reason, Ohio State quarterbacks don't seem to do as well in the NFL as they do in college. You can think back recent memory of Dwayne Haskins. I mean, they put up these crazy numbers in college. They beat up on the Big Ten teams, Michigan and Penn State. And then they come to the NFL, and all of a sudden it appears like they can't handle any type of pocket pressure. So I hope that they do well, but this is an accurate one. I see them maybe getting to 7 wins. They could get 7 wins, I think. I'd have to really look into their schedule, however. But keep going right down this list. Last one, the Colts. I would probably swap the Texans with the Colts. Maybe potential consideration if there are really bad injuries at the quarterback position, Tennessee Titans. I know I said earlier, I think the Tennessee Titans could win their division, and I still hold true to that point. It's just when it comes to the Texans, it's about or the Titans, I mean. It's more about their health for me. I think that defensively they're kind of a meh team. They're all right. And offensively, it's a major question mark over who's that best quarterback on the team currently. But last place, Indianapolis Colts, obviously Anthony Richardson. Potentially could be something. Potentially, he's a crazy athlete. Super fast, super good on the run, but however, the remainder of that roster around him is not looking too good. I think that they could get 6 wins. I think that's probably their ceiling, 6, maybe 7 wins. But yeah, they'll be drafting towards the top of the draft board. So, I mean, I keep looking at this Jets. The ceiling, 12 wins, basically. Floor, 8 wins. I don't know. I think they get probably 9. I'll take the under on this FanDuel. 9 wins for them. Chiefs, I could see them getting 12 wins. Could see it. Even without a Travis Kelce for maybe a game, which he'll probably play tonight, but I guess we will have to wait and see. And then now let's go over to the NFC. Let's see what we got here. Because this is the interesting side. Now for the AFC, I think the AFC Championship game. Let's go back to the AFC real quick, and I'll make my prediction. If there are no major injuries or difficulties in the season, I think we could potentially see an AFC Championship game between either the Chiefs and the Bills or Chiefs and Bengals. I mean, there's not really any other team you could maybe, and if the coaching is great, the Chargers could potentially do it because Justin Herbert is just that good. And he has some weapons surrounding him that he could use to his liking, but that's a big question mark there. I think the Jets would have to play out of their minds in order to make it to the AFC Championship game. Jags, same thing there. Trevor Lawrence will have to throw for 500 yards every quarter. But I think the Bills, if they're able to stay healthy And if Josh Allen's able to keep the turnovers down to a minimum, I think that they can make the AFC Championship game. I don't know if they're going to beat the Chiefs though. But once again, this is pretty heavily dependent on whether Chris Jones returns to the team during the season. So my current projection right now is probably going to be Chiefs and Bills for the AFC Championship. Now moving on to the NFC, much easier choices for me. I mean, come on. Number one team by far. I would disagree. I would disagree with this right here. I'm surprised. Wow. Okay. Now let's get into the arguments. They have the Eagles as the number one team. Obviously went to the Super Bowl last year, right? All right, let's see this. Jalen Hurts is my QB3 in fantasy football. While I'm not forecasting another season of 13 rushing touchdowns, I project he'll have 11 with another 26 through the air. My favorite stat on the Eagles from last season was their offensive line. Yeah, I guess it's them and the Browns for best offensive line. Forecast to repeat in 2023, showing the least amount of fatigue from the first to fourth quarter. I measure this by reaction time and how long blocks are effective for O linemen. Pretty cool right there. But my number one team for the 49ers and who I'm going to project to go to the actual Super Bowl is the 49ers. I feel like some people are forgetting about how awesome a healthy Deebo Samuel is. Yeah, I don't see. I mean, are there really people out there saying that he's booty butt cheeks? I don't really think so, but I guess we'll find out. I do have the San Francisco's as my number one NFC team. I'm sorry, Eagles, but you're gonna have to be number two. Yeah, although your roster is fantastic and everything, but I do think that the 49ers as a whole, best defense in the NFL. I would say by a good margin. You can make the case for the Eagles defensively, but I just don't see a better defensive unit than the 49ers. Yeah, they have lost some coaches and that kind of stuff, but I still think that the players that they have on defense, Nick Bosa just signed a new deal, so he's not going to be holding out anymore. I think this team is ready to go back to the Super Bowl. Seattle Seahawks. Whoa. All right. Let's hear them out. Jeez. Geno Smith stunned the football world last season, winning comeback player of the year and leading the league in deep TD passes, 20-plus air yards. This season, my models show more of a compromise, meaning Seattle won't be as reliant on the deep pass, but will still take advantage of their explosive pieces. Rookie receiver Jackson Smith-Njigba is recovering from wrist surgery, but once he's ready to go, he's got the upside to earn postseason accolades given his talent and surrounding skill position players. Yeah, offensively, yeah, they're great, but defensively is where they kind of fall apart for me. I just don't think that they're going to be able to win shootouts with Geno Smith as your quarterback. I mean, come on, let's be real. Obviously, no stats. Of course, they can't give me any stats from last season that helped me out so much. But the NFC really in a tough spot right now. You have so many quarterbacks who are just out of playing right now. So that's an interesting one, but I'll take the Minnesota Vikings over them. I'm sorry. 11.2 ceiling, 8.3 floor for the Seahawks. I think they could get 10 wins. I think they could get 10 wins if they have a perfect season. Everything goes to plan. 10 wins for the Seattle Seahawks, but I think they'll be closer to 8 or 9. Minnesota Vikings. I think this is the third best team in the NFC. I think offensively and defensively, they match up very well against most teams. Offensively, one of the best passing teams, whether you like Kirk Cousins or not. He gets the job done. And they have the best receiver in all of football in Justin Jefferson. So to have those two together is a good recipe to have. And defensively, they've been amazing defensively for years. And they just got Brian Flores as their defensive coordinator. So we'll wait and see how things come about. The Detroit Lions, okay. Heading into the season, the Lions' offensive line ranks 4th overall in my book. Much of the offensive success in the latter stretch of last season came when Ben Johnson had play action humming. Jared Goff paced the league with 17 play action touchdown passes per next gen stats. With a rebuilt backfield and new pass catchers, as well as Jameson Williams' 6-game suspension to start the season, my models forecast some growing or adapting pains. Yeah, I don't see him getting 10 wins. 9 wins, I think, is also a stretch. I don't really get this one yet. Defensively, they have some real talent, but their first game they're going to play tonight, and it's going to be against the Chiefs. And I think we'll be able to see just them getting pieced apart. I think I just don't trust their defense. And Jared Goff, really? Come on. Jared Goff. Let's be real, folks. He's got arm talent. He's very accurate with the ball, but outside of that, arm strength, pretty average. Not very mobile, not able to get out of the pocket really at all. And I think that will be evident. They do have some pieces on their offense, however, but I guess we'll wait and see. The New York Giants, I think the Giants will be pretty freaking good this season. The week 1 divisional battle between New York and Dallas goes a long way in the playoff race, as I have Brian Daboll's crew knocking off the Cowboys on Sunday Night Football. The offseason additions to the passing game in Darren Waller and receiver Paris Campbell and Jalen Hyatt should give Saquon Barkley more room to operate. Yeah. I would probably have the Giants above the Lions in my simulation. I think the Giants could potentially get 10 wins. I think Brian Daboll has done a fantastic job as the coach there in New York, and I think between them and the Jets, I like the Giants more. Yeah, quarterback is probably the biggest discrepancy between those two teams, but I think that the overall roster and specifically the defense of the Giants is flat, bar none. Amazing defensive squad, and I think Darren Waller will be an effective tight end for them. Obviously he was probably one of, if not the best tight end in the year last year, outside of Travis Kelce. There are some other arguments that you can make for other ones, but past couple of years, there's not really an argument that you can't make that he is one of the 3 best in the NFL. And I think Saquon Barkley will do his thing. And so I'm going to take the Giants at 10. Projected wild card, yeah, I get that. I can see him in the wild card. Next up, Atlanta Falcons. Okay. And it applies to the Saints and Panthers as well. The South is kind of up for grabs. I would agree. There's a lot of interesting things that can happen there, because you have a multitude of teams where you're like, if they start off kind of sucking cheeks, why not just trade their top of the line players, try and get some more draft capital, and try and re-up next season, try and get a big splash in free agency, and see what kind of next year brings to the table. Atlanta Falcons probably best in that division, but between them and the other remainder, it's similar. It's similar in terms of the amount of star power that they have. But with a top 8 O-line, a cavalcade of enticing backs that includes potentially elite rookie Bijan Robinson, I think it'll be fine. I think he does win Rookie of the Year for the offensive side of the football, and a high caliber tight end, Kyle Pitts. I had him on my fantasy last year. Last year was not high end. It was not high end in my world. But I hope that he does amazing this year. He was not on my team, unfortunately. Atlanta's ability to control the clock may be the key to the South. Yeah. This team plays run the ball, run the ball, run the ball, run the ball, and then maybe you pass it, which I think is good for them, because that's where their strengths lie. Good running game and good short down situation receivers, specifically Kyle Pitts. Now we go with the Cowboys. This is one where you're like, whoa. Okay, this is America's team. They have Dak Prescott. They have all the stars, right? Micah Parsons, one of the best on-paper defensive teams in the NFL. However, they always seem to just screw it up later in the season, have these games where it comes down to one score and they make that big mistake and then they're out. I don't see 10 wins. I mean, I think they'll be a pretty much even team. I think they go 9-7. Unfortunately for them, I think they do move on from Dak Prescott in the upcoming years and try and draft a younger quarterback, whoever that may be. Maybe Archie Manning they try and go after. But I guess we'll see. But defensively, they're going to be fine. Trevon Diggs, Micah Parsons, they got the guys on defense. It's just offensively with Dak Prescott as their quarterback, I am not too confident in their prospects. But moving on next to probably the most interesting team in the entirety of the offseason was the New Orleans Saints. Not just because of their addition of Derek Carr as their quarterback, but also because of some of their losses, specifically with Alvin Kamara being out. What does that make the offense going to be early in the season? I think that's one of the major things to look at for the squad. But surprisingly, I think that their defense is probably the strong point of this team. Yeah, Chris Olave is pretty good. I mean, 5.4 receptions over expected on passes of 10 plus air yards, ranked 8th best in the NFL. So Chris Olave coming in. I thought he was going to be one of the better wide receivers, but his first couple of years in the league have not been what I thought he would eventually come out to be, but that's all right. Maybe next season with Derek Carr as his quarterback instead of Andy Dalton, he'll have some real good performances. And I think Derek Carr is, of all the quarterbacks last season, probably the biggest upgrade for a specific team. Yeah, there's some rookies coming in, but I don't really count them because I haven't seen them play in the NFL yet. So I do think the Saints could potentially sniff a win in their respective division. I think they'll be playing against the Atlanta Falcons all season in terms of who's number one in that division. Carolina Panthers ceiling 9.6. I don't get that. Okay. Like they said, the South is kind of a jumbled mess. In fact, the division has the thinnest margin between the team projected to win the postseason and the one projected to pick highest in the 2024 NFL draft. Yeah, they do have Bryce Young. But I think they get 7 wins. I'm going to give them 7 wins. 7 or 8 wins. Yeah, I'll give them 8. I'll take the over for the FanDuel. I think they can get 8 wins, but this is just one of those teams where they're perpetually in a rebuild. And right after them, I don't get this. The Chicago Bears 7.6 wins? What have we not watched Justin Fields? Speaking of Ohio State quarterbacks, even though he wasn't at Ohio State for all 4 years, he originally committed to Penn State. Then he committed to Georgia, went to Georgia, then he went to Ohio State. So you can't really say he was an Ohio State quarterback. That's where he spent the majority of his time. But in order to keep my theory of Ohio State quarterbacks not being able to translate, I think we should state the case that, yeah, he's not a true Ohio State quarterback, just to stroke my ego a little bit. Anyways, with the Chicago Bears, I'm liking this over. I'm liking the ceiling at 9.6. I think they could win 9 games. This over under 7.5 wins. I'm going to take the over. I think they could get 9 wins. I really do. Defensively, yeah. Defensively, they don't have really too many stars there, but I think they really upgraded their offense this season. Obviously, the addition of DJ Moore is the starting point, but I think another year with Justin Fields behind that offensive line, the offensive line is not the best. Let's be honest here. He was running for his life last season. However, I think that Justin Fields can take that next step and he can prove to be, of his draft class, the best quarterback in there. Which I don't think is a super hot take. I think Justin Fields will be a fantastic quarterback in the NFL, and I think the Bears could win potentially 9 games. I think that's their ceiling. I think their ceiling 9.6. Yeah, whatever. I think they could win 9 games. I definitely think they could win 9 games. The Packers up next. Obviously, the loss of Aaron Rodgers, but I just don't trust the team. I do not trust them. Aaron Jones on my fantasy team, I think he'll be nice, but I don't know. I don't know about the quarterback. That's it. That's my only hesitation. Defensively, they're still top of the line. Defensively, they're probably one of the 10 best in the NFC, maybe top 8, top 6 in the NFC. But I'm more concerned with what their quarterback play is, and for that reason, I'm out. I'm out. I'm thinking their floor 5.1. I think they maybe win 6 games, 6 to 7 games. I'm not really liking it too much. Not liking it at all. Washington Commanders ceiling 9.4 games. I don't even know who their quarterback's going to be, but they have added Eric Bieniemy to their squad. So as a result of that, I do think that they will be pretty in the middle, just based off their coaching. The FanDuel over under 6.5. That's a tough one. I would say their ceiling is 8 games. I think that's the most that they can win. They have so many questions at their quarterback position. Wide receivers, not an issue. Defensively, not an issue. Chase Young, we'll have to see kind of what they're thinking at that position. But with that being said, I do think that the Washington Commanders can be a potentially good cast of characters. And then moving on with the Bucks, the Rams. I mean, you look at the bottom of the division and you're like, whoa, you think of 2 years ago, Arizona Cardinals projected 3.9 wins. Their ceiling is 5.2. I would agree. James Conner is probably literally their only good offensive player. Yeah, Rondale Moore coming out of college. I thought he was going to be one of the best receivers. I thought he was going to be Antonio Brown. I thought he was really going to have a huge impact on the NFL, but unfortunately, it's not been there. I mean, partly you could say it's not a fault of his own, but he also hasn't performed that well himself either. But Rams, Cooper Kupp, yeah, they have said that he will probably be good to go. I'm following all the latest injury stuff with him because him and Matthew Stafford, they got to make it work. The first year they won a Super Bowl, but I need to see more from Cooper Kupp. If we're gonna be saying that the Rams are gonna be able to win 6 games, I don't see it. I think their roster is just so top heavy. I mean, I can't name a single player on their offensive line. I think I know who their tight end is, but you ask me on that defensive side, you ask me who their DBs are. I don't know. Who knows? They just lost one of their safeties to go over to the Bengals. What are we looking at with the Rams? Unfortunately, I think this might be Sean McVay's last year as a head coach in the NFL. He's gotten multiple offers because of his very attractive face. Objectively, he's an attractive man. I'm not afraid to say it. I'll look you dead in the eyes and say Sean McVay is attractive. Much more attractive than I am, unfortunately. Although I don't think. Let's go a little bit off topic here. On a scale of 1 to 10, I'm probably a 6.5. I used to be a little more on the chunky side, used to be up around that 200 pounds, about like 20 to 30% body fat. I was probably hauling in about a 4, but lost a lot of weight, put on some muscle. I would say I'm probably a 6, 6.5, 7 if everything's perfect. Sean McVay, on the other hand, he could go up to 300, 400. He's a pretty attractive young man. And I think that bodes well for him when he eventually will go to his television career. But yeah, these bottom 2 teams, Cardinals, Rams, I'm not liking it. I'm not liking it. And then we'll go over, yes, Chiefs, Travis Kelce believed to have avoided long-term knee injury. He's still in doubt. I have been trying to keep updates on this particular thing. I think he's probably gonna sit out this game, but I wouldn't be surprised if he does, but I'm leaning more towards they'll just have him sit out. Maybe he comes in early, plays the first half. And then maybe I don't know. Because the Chris Jones, whether it's on the defensive side of the football, it still matters. If Chris Jones is not going to play there, if Chris Jones is not going to be there, which it appears like he will not be, they could be in some not trouble, but I think it'll be a difficult game for them against the Lions to start the year off. All right. Yeah. This is a cool article that I saw on NFL.com. 58 things to watch on the road to Super Bowl 58? Yeah, 58. Right? Yeah, 58. Yeah. Trends to monitor. So there's 52 different things, or 58, sorry. So let's go through them. All right. The trends to monitor. Number 1, scoring Don. Scoring averaged 43.8 points per game in 2022, a 5-year low, which is definitely not the direction the NFL prefers. Not coincidentally, roughing the passer and defensive pass interference, the two calls that make the biggest impact on offense, were also at 5-year lows in 2022. There was a few controversial roughing calls early last season. This year, it is a point of emphasis for officials to call it correctly and with uniformity across all the crews. Number 2, quarterback concussion. A new quarterback-specific helmet designed to offer greater protection when a quarterback head hits the ground, which accounts for about half of all quarterback concussions, is available for the first time this season. A spike in concussions suffered by quarterbacks last season accounted for much of the 18% increase in reported concussions in 2022. Number 3, running hot. It was a brutal offseason for running backs seeking new contracts, and it followed a year in which the running game was more productive than it has been in decades. Last season, teams averaged 121.6 rushing yards per game, the most since 1987. And they averaged 27.3 rushing attempts per game, the most since 2011. The number 0 at 4. The first time since 1972, the NFL is allowing most players to wear the number 0. At least 22 are expected to wear. Okay, cool beans. Number 5, international intrigue. The NFL will play 5 games in Europe this season, 3 in London, 2 in Frankfurt, Germany. The Jags will play back-to-back weeks in London. That's got to be so much fun for them. One as the home team, one as the visitor. The first time in NFL history a team has played 2 regular seasons in the same year outside of the United States. Maybe the Jags will become the London Jags. All right. 6, for the first time, the NFL will play on Black Friday, November 24th, the unofficial holiday after Thanksgiving, in a game between the Dolphins and Jets that will be shown on Prime Video. Okay. All right. Rules to remember. Number 7, farewell kickoff returns. A 1-year rule change says if a kickoff is kicked anywhere inside the 25-yard line, the receiving team can signal for a fair catch and the ball will be placed at the 25-yard line for the start of the next possession. Because of the speed of the collisions, a disproportionate number of concussions are suffered on kickoffs. The league expects the rate of return kickoffs to drop from 38 to 31%, and as a result, it anticipates a 15% drop in concussions on the play. This is just a stopgap measure. Number 8, more restrictions of hitting with the helmet. This should be fun. A player will be penalized if he uses any part of his helmet or face mask to butt or make forcible contact to an opponent's head or neck area, not just if he lowers his head to make contact. Expect flags thrown and especially fines delivered. I'm sure this will not cause any issues in the officiating. All right, number 9, wither the hip drop tackle. The league is worried about how many high ankle sprains result from the hip drop tackle. It wasn't banned for this season, but the competition committee and the health and safety officials are monitoring its use. This conversation is probably not over. Number 10, push play stays. Despite conversations around the league, especially by the competition committee, about banning the play for safety reasons, the quarterback push sneak, run extremely successfully, most notably by the Eagles, is still here. Denver Broncos coach Sean Payton said he would design more plays out of that formation, and defenses have undoubtedly spent the offseason trying to figure out how to stop the sneak. Yeah. Right. I mean, I don't know why you would want to ban this. Yeah. It's your job as a defense to learn how to stop this. You don't change the rules so this doesn't happen. I mean, come on, what are we talking about? Appointment viewing. Number 11, Lions Chiefs. Are the Lions really contenders? Is there any reason to think the Chiefs are not a dynasty? 12, Green Bay Packers at Chicago Bears, week 1. Jordan Love era begins. Justin Fields, NFC North quarterback matchup. Number 13, Dolphins. These are just games, which I get. But week 9, Bills, Bengals, November 5th. Eagles, Chiefs in week 11 on Monday night. That'll be interesting. 49ers at Eagles in week 13. Probably the two best teams in the entire NFL, if the Chiefs are not a team. 25, Bengals, Chiefs, week 17. This will be an interesting one. All right, questions we want answered. Number 27 or 26. Is the Bengals' revamped offensive line no longer a concern? 27. Are the Eagles so loaded that losing starters from the Super Bowl team plus both coordinators doesn't slow them down? I think that it will. 28. And where does rapidly ascending Philly quarterback Jalen Hurts grow next? I think he'll be pretty much the same thing he was last season. I don't expect him to be throwing for 4,500 yards and 40 touchdowns or anything crazy. 29. What does Lamar Jackson do in Todd Monken's offense and with the best receivers he's ever had in Baltimore? I think he does pretty well. 30. How close can the Ravens OBJ get to his pre-injury form? Hopefully close. 31. With his first normal offseason since 2020, will Deshaun Watson look more like the top 5 quarterback the Cleveland Browns hoped? I hope for his sake, yes. 32. Can Baker Mayfield play his way into being the long-term answers for the Bucs? No. 33. Can Eric Bieniemy do enough with Sam Howell in Washington's offense and convert players who complain about his tough coaching style to finally land a head coaching job in 2024? Interesting. I think it's safe to say he's pretty much the head coach. I mean, offensively, that's probably the most important side of the football in 2023. Number 34. Will Patriots quarterback Mac Jones carry a strong training camp performance into the season and look like the franchise's future again? For his sake, God, I hope so, because they're struggling. 35. What is Trey Lance's future in Dallas and perhaps beyond? Yeah. Dak starts struggling, they move on. They trade Dak for some draft picks, revamp that defense, try and fix some pieces on that O-line potentially. I think that they could move on from Dak sooner than you would think. All right, number 36. What will Kyle Shanahan get out of Brock Purdy now that he has him as a 49ers starter for the full season? I think Brock Purdy is pretty much just going to be Jimmy Garoppolo, maybe a little bit more athletic, but I'm not too worried about him. 37. With a roster in transition, is this also Kirk Cousins' final season in Minnesota? If Justin Jefferson has the same season he does last year, they ain't moving. Kirk Cousins is not going out of there. I'm sorry to say. And also, seeing those videos of him in the locker room and like his teammates enjoying their time that they're spending with him, I think he's there for a couple more years. 38. Without cornerback Jalen Ramsey until late in the season, how much improvement can Vic Fangio create for the Miami Dolphins defense? I think a little bit. 39. Tua Tagovailoa has changed helmets, practiced jiu-jitsu, and gained weight to try and stay healthy for the Dolphins this season. Does it work? Yeah. He's going to be... Yeah, he's going to be better. Changed helmets. Yeah, that's going to keep him safer. Practice jiu-jitsu. He's going to understand his body. He's going to understand how to fall, how to interact, maybe potentially help him get out of times when defenders try and grab him and throw him to the ground. He's going to be able to use his body weight a little bit more efficiently. And gaining weight, hopefully that's not just fat. Hopefully that's a lot of muscle. And I would be interested to know what kind of training he did to actually put on muscle. If it was just straight bodybuilding training, or if he's doing like plyometrics or some other fancy kind of training to try and put on weight. And I'll be interested to see what his diet is, but I'll have to ask him myself. Number 40, can Sean Payton change the culture and resurrect Russell Wilson enough to get the Broncos back into the playoffs? No. Here's your answer right there. 41, can Mike McCarthy's play calling help Dak Prescott limit interceptions and carry the Cowboys to a deep playoff run? For the first part, limit interceptions. Yes. Yes. Mike McCarthy, in his return to the NFL, has been absolutely outstanding. I think he's done a fantastic job of catching up to the modern day NFL. But deep playoff run. The Cowboys ain't going on no deep playoff run. Come on. Come on. Deep playoff run means NFC Championship game. That's not happening. I apologize. I'm sorry. I think they could make the playoffs, but I don't think they'll win a game, unfortunately. 42, how much does the presence of DJ Moore help Justin Fields and the Bears make the jump from being the league's lowest ranked passing attack? I think it makes a massive difference. I also think it helps that Justin Fields gets an offseason with DJ Moore to develop a sort of chemistry. I think they'll be absolutely fantastic this upcoming season. 43, can Desmond Ridder take advantage of all his weapons to make the Falcons the NFL's next explosive offense? Really, for Desmond Ridder, he's got to throw like 250 yards a game for them, and maybe a touchdown, no interceptions. I mean, he's got to do that. Their running game is absolutely fantastic, one of the best in the NFL. It's just, can their defense hold the other team to under 30, under 25 even? And can Desmond Ridder make a couple of plays a game? That's kind of what I'm looking for from Desmond Ridder. I'm not looking for him to be throwing 350 yards, 4 touchdowns, or anything crazy like that. I am looking for him to make short passes, get the ball to Bijan Robinson if he needs to out of the backfield, and try and keep the ball moving down the field. Unfortunately for them, they don't have a wide receiver that's going to be breaking records anytime soon. 44. What will the Cardinals quarterback situation look like until Kyler Murray returns from an ACL injury? Probably not good. Probably pretty buns. All right, 45. Does the second year of Trevor Lawrence with Doug Peterson and the addition of Calvin Ridley give the Jaguars a stranglehold on the AFC South? Like I said earlier, I think the Titans still are probably the best team in that division, but I would not be surprised to see the Jaguars win. Once again, 10 wins, 11 wins for the Jags. Don't think it happens. 9 wins, very plausible for the Jags. 46. Or does the arrival of DeAndre Hopkins help the Titans take back the top spot? I think it helps. But the main thing with the Titans for me is just, can that quarterback stay healthy? And can their defense make relatively few stops in a game? Because once you have Derrick Henry, you could kind of just run the clock out. 47. Can the Chargers star-filled roster finally stay healthy enough to top of the Chiefs and make an AFC playoff push? Yeah, I think so. I mean, we're just guessing, can they stay healthy? I think they can. 48. Will any running backs not named Christian McCaffrey be happy with their current contract situations? That's pretty funny. Probably not. I mean, why not? If you're only going to play realistically as a running back 8 years, 8 years is a good career. I mean, maybe you get 2 contracts. If I'm one of, why not try and get your money? I understand it from both sides. Obviously, the organization has to say, listen, we can't be paying a running back almost half as much as our quarterback. A running back, from team's perspective, running back should not be getting paid $20 million. From a running back's perspective, I'm only going to play probably 5-6 years. I need to get as much money as I can out of this. I played my entire life. I've gone through everything. And the majority of these running backs, they didn't have NIL in college. They didn't have opportunities to make money. So this is their time in their professional life where they can make big boy money. So I say for the players, go for it. And for the teams, screw them. Screw them, right? If you're a team and a player is coming to you to say, hey, I got 1,200 yards last season with 13 touchdowns. I need $20 million. And you're looking around and you're like, well, I can get that from these two other running backs, that same production for a combined of like $8 million. Why not do that? It makes sense from both sides. 49. And how will the contributions be mid-training camp signees Ezekiel Elliott for the Patriots and Dalvin Cook for the Jets? Patriots, I don't think Zeke makes a big effort. He's one of the running backs I have on my roster. I think Zeke is kind of over the hump now. I thought coming into the league after his first 2 seasons, he was the best running back in the NFL, but just consistency is just not there with him, which is a major concern. And Dalvin Cook with the Jets, they already have Breece Hall. They didn't really need to have him, but it certainly helps. Imagine those 2 running backs. That's a good recipe right there. I really like the Jets move with that, but does it get them over the Bills? Does it get them over the Bengals? Does it get them over the Chiefs? No. It probably gets them over the Ravens, right? But I don't know if it's AFC Championship game. 50. What is the learning curve for the new face of the Colts, Anthony Richardson? How long until the 21-year-old mastery of the fine points of quarterback catches up to his stunning physical skills? I mean, he's got a crazy arm. He's just got to be accurate and he's got to make good decisions. So I think Anthony Richardson will be fine. He'll be fine. 51. Were the glimpses of an explosive offense from the Steelers and Kenny Pickett? Glimpses. Listen, I live in Pittsburgh. I went to many of these games. Glimpses. Glimpse. There must have been a blimp blocking my glimpse of these explosive plays from the Steelers offense. I mean, what are we talking about? This is one of the few teams where I know the majority of the players on their roster because I live in Pittsburgh and everybody talks about them. Come on, explosive? I think they had one play last year over 20 yards. And I think it was a little flea flicker to Cam Hayward's younger brother. I mean, what are we talking about? Their offense was the issue last season, and the non-explosiveness of the offense was the issue last season. Yeah, and Najee Harris running for what, 2 yards a carry or something like that. Like, it's the offensive line, it's the lack of the wide receiver talent. Yes, Deontay Johnson, fine wide receiver, 0 receiving touchdowns last year. What? 0? Yes, 0. They're not going to be explosive, all right? Kenny Pickett's not going to have a rocket arm. But I think Kenny Pickett's going to be pretty good. I think he'll be a fine quarterback in the NFL, but I'm not going to call them explosive anytime soon. That is just outright disrespectful. 52. Will Geno Smith's remarkable second career act continue and allow the Seahawks to challenge the 49ers in the NFC West? Nope. Nah. Yeah, that's not happening. I apologize. 53. How many teams will be undermined by the almost universal lack of offensive line depth on display in the preseason? Didn't watch any of the preseason. Yeah, offensive line is probably one of the most important positional groups, if not the most important positional groups on the offensive side of the football. If you don't have an athletic quarterback and you have a poopy offensive line, it's not a recipe for success. So there's many teams in both conferences where that is an issue. I'm looking at you, Jacksonville. 54. With Darren Waller heading up to a revamped group of Giants pass catchers, can Daniel Jones make another big leap in production? I think he can. I don't see why the addition of Darren Waller would even have an impact on those wide receivers. I think that everybody will still be able to get their same level of touches, same level of catches. I would like to see Daniel Jones run less, actually, even though it is a major skill of his. I think if you do have Saquon Barkley and you are paying Saquon the money that you're currently paying him, he needs to be running that ball. He needs to be pounding the rock on his own and try and have Daniel Jones develop as a passer. 55. How productive will a finally healthy Michael Thomas be with Derek Carr throwing the ball in New Orleans? I think it'll be good. I think that was one of the best aspects of the offseason for the Saints and one of the reasons why I'm intrigued by the Saints. I do think that although Michael Thomas hasn't played in a couple of years, last time he did play, he was top 3, top 5 wide receiver in the NFL. We'll see where he is now at this stage in his career. 56. After gutting their defense, can the Rams score enough and offer enough protection for Matthew Stafford to keep the season from getting ugly? I think they could keep it from getting ugly. That would be like 3 wins. That's an ugly season. 3 and 14? That's an ugly season. But 5 wins, 6 wins, that might be more realistic for where the Rams end up, but 7, 8 wins, even 6 wins. 6 wins might be a stretch for this squad because they're just depleted at so many positions. They paid way too much for their players. They're top of the line talent, and now it's having ripples effect through the remainder of their roster. 57. Is the Jets' offensive line good enough and subtle enough to protect Aaron Rodgers? I guess that's one of the things that they'll wait and see, because that also depends on how much Aaron Rodgers is going to be running. Is he going to be scrambling a lot? Is he going to be trying to get out of the pocket? I think that's to be determined, because he is getting up there in age and he's obviously not as big and as strong and agile as he once used to be. So I'll be interested to see that. But he's also got 2 people in the backfield. He could potentially just have 2 running backs, Dalvin Cook and Breece Hall, block for him. Why not? Bring in an extra tight end to help block and just kind of see where things go from there. Lastly, 58. Which teams will have the top draft eligible college quarterbacks on their radar in the final weeks of the season? Rams. You could potentially say the Cowboys, potentially the Cowboys, even though they have Trey Lance waiting in the wings. I don't think he's a surefire thing yet. Another team that could be looking at this would be Atlanta. I don't know if they're set on Desmond Ridder. I don't think they're set in stone. Washington Commanders. They feel like a team who's just about a quarterback away. If they get like a top 10 quarterback in the league, if they get, say, just if they got Aaron Rodgers in the offseason, they would have a completely different outlook on the season. But I think those are some of the teams that could definitely really use a new quarterback. The Jets even. The Jets should be looking in the next draft, should be looking for a quarterback, even though they do have Zach Wilson. And I think Aaron Rodgers himself has said that he's going to try and perform just well enough to help out Zach Wilson. So I guess that's one of the ones we will wait and see on it. We'll wait and see. But now let's do this. Final. We're only hours away from the kickoff of the 2023 NFL season. My Super Bowl pick for the 2023 NFL season. And if there are injuries, if there are crazy things that happen in the NFL season, then I'll just eat my own words. But my Super Bowl is going to be a rematch of the Chiefs and the 49ers, and I think the Chiefs win again. I think the Chiefs are, yes, obviously the Chris Jones is a major factor, but I think by the time we get to the playoffs, they'll have that buttoned up. And I think Patrick Mahomes is one of the greatest quarterbacks in the history of the NFL. There is not really any situation that he's looked at or that he hasn't seen this far in his NFL career. I think he's going to be our generation's Peyton Manning. I won't say Tom Brady. I'll say Peyton Manning. And the reason for that is statistically and in the regular season, he is electric. He is fantastic. And then when it comes to the playoffs, he still is like Peyton Manning. And Peyton Manning didn't have as much playoff success as Tom Brady, but I think that's evident, and that's just how it happens. I mean, you look at what Tom Brady did throughout his NFL career, and I don't think we'll ever see that again. So I think it's not correct to compare Tom Brady and Patrick Mahomes currently right now in their career. But if Patty Mahomes wins another Super Bowl, we got to have some conversations. And I think at the end of the season, we'll be having those conversations. But I think the 49ers defensively, they'll keep teams to under 20 points a game. And they'll be able to run the ball, and they'll be able to, if they need to, throw it to Kittle, throw it to Deebo Samuel. And if they're able to stay healthy, I think they can absolutely beat the booty cheeks off of the Eagles. So that's going to be my pick for the Super Bowl this year.